Okay, right. Welcome to the Fast Fwd Podcast. We've got with us Douglas Mallette, ex, well, I say ex, but ex-NASA Space Shuttle Systems Engineer, if I'm right.
Close.
A member of the Zeitgeist Movement.
Loosely affiliated, yes.
Loosely affiliated. And CEO of Cybernated Farm Systems.
Correct.
Excellent. And we're going to talk a little bit about your Cybernated Farm Systems project. I had quite a big interest in aquaponics for about a year now when I first came across it. I like the whole idea of it being almost an ecosystem by itself. And
right.
when I heard about your project and looking to create this self-contained food growing and growth to delivery system and drop them all over the planet, I just thought this is absolutely fascinating. I've got to find out a little bit more about this. So
Sure.
So if you could give me a quick rundown of how this idea came about, basically.
Well, we'd have to go all the way back to the Haitian earthquake that ravaged Haiti. And at the time, I was still working with the Space Shuttle program. When you're working in the space industry, you kind of learn about what sustainability and all of that is anyway, because when you're doing space missions and you're up there for weeks at a time with there's no grocery store orbiting the planet.
Yeah.
And so you've got to take everything with you, and you've got to make sure that, and when we say take everything with you, that means mass. And the more mass you have, the harder it is to get up, because you got more weight, and you got all this thrust, and you have the rockets, and there's a whole technical analysis that goes into how much stuff you can really take up. So the goal is a minimization. Minimize what you have to take up as much as possible so you have less mass. And I'm kind of getting to the story. I got to give you some background as to where CFS came from, and so I'm kind of giving you a core description.
That's fine. So actually, just
okay.
Sorry to interject. I might do this if you don't mind. So if you're trying to reduce mass, does that mean you literally go up there with very little and then grow stuff up there? Basically, is that the idea?
Well, that's the idea. They're not quite doing that yet. Of course, the past 20 years or so has just been about building the space station and building all of these things. So all the mass going up was just parts, getting all the stuff up there. But now when you're looking long term, like living up there and standard operations, we still do logistics runs where we take automated vehicles. That's what SpaceX is doing with their Dragon capsule and stuff like that, the private space industry. They're basically a cargo resupply ship, and so they just put in a whole bunch of food and perishables and stuff and take it up there. But if you're thinking moon base, if you're thinking Mars base, let's just go all the way out to Mars, because that's what I talk about when I do my lectures. You can't just shoot up a rocket, resupply it really quick, and have it come back to the Earth. Mars is too far away. The logistics windows are 2, 4, 6 years. It depends on the windows that are involved. So when you start thinking about living on someplace that far away and that complicated, you have to think about sustainability, longevity, making sure that you bring as much with you as you can, but so that it's in a reusable context. And so Haiti happened. And I saw what was going on with their quote-unquote rebuilding effort, which, by the way, they're still doing a rebuilding effort, which makes no sense. And at the time, I had just been made aware of Dr. Kushnievis from the University of Southern California, who came up with a technology called contour crafting, which is basically a fully automated erector set for making buildings. And you can make a 2,000 square foot building in 24 hours. And I thought, I'm watching Haiti, and I'm looking at what this guy has the potential to do. And I'm like, holy crap, you could rebuild all of Haiti in like a month.
Yes.
If you put like 6 or 7 of these robots down there and just went chunk, 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 and just started, cranking out neighborhoods.
Even if you were to say contour crafting is still like in its infancy, if you look at what the Chinese are doing at the moment with how fast they can put up buildings, it's possible to literally reconstruct entire cities in, I would say, I'm not an engineer, but I'd hazard a guess of saying at least within a couple of years you could build an entire city, basically.
Yeah, and I firmly believe that's true. It doesn't take a leap of faith or a lot of extrapolation to look at what you already have in front of you. Like you said, that there's this video of building a skyscraper in, what was it, like a day or 2 days or
it was
something like that.
exactly.
It's ridiculously short. I mean, ridiculous. I could be off on the timescales, but I know it's not the 6, 8, 9 months that they usually try to do.
It was literally days, basically.
Yeah, days.
Yeah.
And they did it. And so it's right there in front of you. So you've got that. And then you've got what Dr. Kushnievas is doing, a PhD in material properties and stuff, and really knows his stuff. He's a professor at a leading university in the science department. It's not like the guy's going to be blowing smoke, up people's rear ends to say, oh, I'm selling you, all this great stuff. He has a working a small scale prototype in his lab and stuff like that. So I'm looking at that. I'm going, well, that's awesome. And then the next thing that went in my mind, well, that's shelter. What about food? Mm-hmm. And I'm actually not an aquaponics specialist. I had never heard about aquaponics. I'm not a farmer. I'm terrible with dirt. I don't have a green thumb. I have a black thumb. I can't grow anything. But that's not the point. The point was, can I hire or get with an aquaponics specialist? Can I get with a clean energy specialist? Can I get with these people and come together as a team and say, okay, I'm a systems engineer. What I do is put all you guys together and we come up with an idea, and I've already done a lot of the groundwork, so here's the concept, here's the concept art, for lack of a better term. Can we do something? So that's kind of where I am now. I'm at that crossroads. I've already done as much pre-work on cybernated farm systems as I can, and the intent of CFS, and you kind of illustrated it at the beginning in the opening, is a highly automated, not fully automated, it'd just be highly automated, as much as we can make it, highly automated aquaponic farm building that could be placed in the middle of nowhere and still be able to operate to create food for the local inhabitants. And it's all about local production, local distribution, without the need for an infrastructure. Basically, you build the building, you put in the initial supply of stuff to get things rolling, like your initial water and stuff like that would have to be outsourced and brought in, yes. Yeah. But then after that, it has rain collection systems, it has moisture collection systems, you'll have to resupply seeds every once in a while for the plants. In the long run, future plans, you could have seeding buildings.
Yeah, but if you're growing within, if it's a self-contained thing, you're going to produce your own seeds anyway. So
in the long run, and you can even have a building whose sole purpose is a seeding building. Yeah. That's what it does. Is it creates seeds or something. You know what? We'll work with that when we get to it. Right now, the important thing is to get something into regions of the world where people are starving to death. Yeah. Because as far as I'm concerned, nobody in the 21st century should have to worry about food.
Yes, most definitely. I completely agree. For me, what baffles me about where we are now in the 21st century is that the inefficiency is staggering with everything. And I feel very much that to have got this far with the amount of technology we have to hand, the very fact that I've got a computer that's very powerful sitting in the palm of my hand, rather than filling up a room like we would have done about 50 years ago, that shows me that we can do it. And these problems they're the cause of something else. I know what these causes are. I'm not going to steer too deeply into it because I want to make sure that we carry on talking about this, the solutions aspect of the problem as much as possible. But
well, it helps to address the problems. You got to know what they are and be like, okay, done with those.
Well, that's true. Because I would assume that part of the problem is exactly what you're facing now yourself, because you're having to find funding to get this done, even though this strikes me as a rather common sense project that everybody should be behind, because the fundamentals of life are food, water, shelter, pretty much, down to if you're looking at your Maslow's index, and then obviously you've got familial units and the rest, knowledge and the rest from there. But
well, I break it down into two categories. Yeah, okay. I break it down into two categories. Like when I do my lectures, you've got biological needs, the things that keep the human being alive, as a creature, because we are still animals. We happen to be the most evolved animal on the planet mentally and stuff like that, but still things that keep us alive. And then you've got things that make life a little better. So you're like, for example, do you need shelter? Well, no, not really. You can still exist without shelter. It'd be kind of a hard life. It'd be a pain in the butt, but you could exist without shelter. You could be a vagabond and just move around or whatever. And we used to do that. That's what the hunter-gatherers basically did. So, but you got to the biological needs, though. If you don't have breathable air, you're toast. If you don't have food, you're toast. If you don't have water, you're toast. If you don't get adequate sleep, that actually does eventually mess up your mental state and can cause you to go psychotic and stuff like that. And in the long run, you're toast. So, and in medical care, being able to take care of yourself if you get broken, bandages and all the things, like if you cut yourself, infections, protecting against all of those kinds of things. If you don't have a way to manage that, you're toast. We're eating a lot of toast if we, if we don't take care of these things. And so those are the biological needs that, as far as I'm concerned, and we can get into the philosophical debate on that in a second, I think every human being born should not have to worry about that anymore. Ever.
Yes. And
it's really that simple.
And we are in a position where we should be able to deal with all of that right now without any exceptions. That needs to be a fundamental that's sorted. I mean, for me, I keep thinking to myself, really, in order for us all on this planet to transition, we must make sure that every single person on this planet has access to free food, free water, clean water, and free and good clean air, basically. And then everything else we can work it out, basically. This for me is like, for any time I switch on the telly and I hear politicians speaking and they're talking about fiscal cliffs or all the nonsense, basically, I think to myself, gentlemen, we need to go back to basics. There's a lot of things that hasn't been sorted out yet.
Yeah, and the problem is that's because our economic system is founded upon social Darwinism, which of course, which is in and of itself is nonsense. It's ridiculous. Whoever, I don't even remember the guy's name, but whoever coined the term social Darwinism is a moron. Because think about it on just a basic level. What is Darwinism? That is about biological evolution over millions of years, and it is a passive, not an active, it's a passive adjustment over time. Your environment changes, the biology starts to change. The environment changes, the biology starts to change, but that's over really long periods of time. And that gets to the survival of the fittest. If you don't change and adapt, you die. Okay, that's biological evolution over millions of years. And now you're trying to adopt that survival of the fittest to economics, which is an active engagement. We choose how to treat each other. We choose the systems that we use to operate with each other. That is an active, engaging process, not a passive evolutionary process. They're completely different modes of operation, but some schmuck decided to stick them together and say, nope, you have to earn your right to exist. You have to validate your existence as a human. You have to, live or survival of the fittest. He who has the most toys wins, and all this materialistic crap that goes with it.
Well, exactly. I mean, the things that the person who coined that phrase, I mean, did he earn his right to exist, or was he just playing word games? Essentially, was that his way of earning his right, by putting somebody else in a position where they couldn't have free existence in this life, basically.
And that doesn't even go into the bastardization of what it is to earn in this system. Is the person who's working 60 hours a week, working a drudgery job that's very physically labor intensive, who makes a fifth of what some paunch douchebag in a suit sitting at a computer who plays with a few numbers in the financial system and makes the $1.3 million, who worked harder? Technically, the hard labor person worked harder. They really busted their butt to earn their minimum wage or whatever it is they make, not the guy who sat in a suit in front of a computer who played with numbers for 4 hours and made $1 million. So you want to talk about survival of the fittest, put that guy in the jungle for a moment, see how long the suit lasts. I bet the hard working guy will probably last a little bit longer.
Well, the question is that do they make anything that's of any value? Basically, that's the fundamentals of it, really. Um,
Yeah, and they'll argue that the money that they make is used to pay that guy or is used to start another company or whatever, whatever. It's circular logic. They try to
well,
justify that.
most definitely. Uh, anyway, before we get pulled down into the rabbit hole
Yeah.
of economics talk, um, in fact, I think this quite an interesting segue actually because as we've been heading down this path anyway, with a product like this, were you at any point tempted? Well, with an idea like this, I'll say a product. The term product very much suggests, But anyway, with a concept like this, were you at any point tempted to take it down the commercial route and seek a big multinational corporation and say, look, I've got this great idea. Would you be interested in buying it off me, basically?
No, I never had the intent at all to ever sell the idea to some major corporation because as far as I'm concerned, they probably would bury it anyway. Because that would completely screw up a lot of bottom lines to the agricultural industry. I had always wanted to start my own company with a purpose. Now, I will say, yes, I am starting a for-profit company. It is a company.
Yeah.
I'm not going the nonprofit route, and I have reasons for that. There's a lot of laws with nonprofits sometimes make it difficult to get into certain regions of the world, and things like that. If you really think about the best way to play the game, as much as I hate the game, the best way to play the game is by the rules that are in front of you. So if I want to have the biggest impact, fast as possible, doing what I need to do to help as many people as possible, I need to go the corporate route. I really need to use the money game to do that.
Yep.
The intent, though, is not to just become some multi-billion-dollar corporation that controls everybody's food. If you look at what the product will eventually be, it's a product where the people manage to control it themselves. They aren't at the beck and call of Cybernated farm systems. We are giving them all the manuals, all the operating procedures. Eventually, I do want to put 3D printing systems in the building so that if a part breaks, they can manufacture a new part, either by local materials or having a stash of the chemicals that are necessary for the epoxies and the resins to make a part every once in a while so that they can kind of manage their own stuff without being dependent on CFS. That's also why I'm kind of doing a cradle to grave maintenance program. It's all inclusive. When you buy the building, you only pay for it once. That serves two purposes. One, that means they don't have some recurring cost over and over again. To keep the building running for, say, 30-year life cycle or whatever we figure that out to be exactly. I know what I want, but we still have to build the prototype and we still have to test everything and do the proper science, do what's necessary to make sure that it works the way I want it to. But there's a one-time cost thing, but it makes sure CFS had better damn well be sure that it is creating the best product possible. Because if we don't, and since we're eating the costs on maintenance, we're going to hurt ourselves. And see, that's where I think one of the biggest problems with corporations today is they pass that off to the customer and say, no, you've got to buy this maintenance program. So that means we can make crap, and you're going to end up paying for it anyway because you're paying this maintenance, so it really doesn't cost us anything. And so it doesn't give the companies the incentives to actually make the best product possible. They just make what's cost effective enough at the moment. And if something breaks, whatever, you've got a warranty, or just come in and get the new phone or whatever. There's no, and that goes back to sustainability.
There's built-in obsolescence anyway. So even if you don't get the hit through the maintenance costs, you're back to a short lifespan and then having to replace product anyway. But what you just said, I found it really interesting because you actually negated one of my questions that I was going to ask you, because I was going to say whether you'd thought about the possibilities of starting a for-profit company with such a concept, ending up creating an establishment of its own right, which would then have to self-perpetuate itself. But it looks like you've actually built in within it a system to stop it becoming an established system, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, like self-regulators and controls, exactly. I don't want it to become that.
Which is brilliant. Okay, that's oh, right. Okay, well, Okay, well that's screwed that question up then. Anyway,
My bad.
that's good. You know, so when you've finally, well, because what stage would you say you're at now with the testing? Have you got any small prototypes that are running at the moment, or are you literally now at a stage where you're ready to scale up?
Yeah, a lot of people have asked me this in various ways, some more aggressively than others. But here's what it boils down to. Some people say, "Well, I'm okay. I'm in the process of building. I need to build the prototype, and it's a relatively small system, but I have to test the automation processes and everything else, the grow chambers and all. It's not even really a grow chamber. It's a standard grow bed. Here's the thing: I'm not inventing anything crazy with this. All right, every aspect of the building exists. Aquaponics is proven, it exists.
Yeah.
Automation is proven, it exists. Clean energy systems, what else, all the aspects of the building exist. Okay, what I'm doing is putting it together in a way so that it is self-sustaining. That's going to require some testing to make sure that it does what I want it to do, and also to get numbers, real numbers. How many seeds are we actually going to need to run to do this for a year? How many a year's operations? How much water can we actually collect? Are we going to have to resupply water, or can we make it collect, enough? It depends on where it is in the world and its average rainfall, things like that too. Sometimes I get questions from people that ask, well, what about rain collection? And I go, well, that depends on where you live, doesn't it? It's very geographically dependent. So every building is going to have to be tailored to the geography of where it's going to be. And so, like in Scandinavia, for example, let's just go far, far north. There are geothermal options to power some of these buildings with geothermal, but I don't even have geothermal in the blueprint right now. Okay, but that doesn't mean we can't do it.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have a whole lot of solar, but they have a boatload of wind in the Scandinavian area. It's very windy in that region of the world. And so you probably have more wind vanes than solar panels, just because you're going to get more wind derivative with the battery banks than you are solar. So every building is going to be tailored to the region that it is, so that it is maximally efficient for that zone. All right. But in general, I just want to get a baseline. I have to start somewhere. I've got to develop a baseline. I can't do some small backyard thing, and the reason why is because how do you automate that? How do you automate something that you could just walk out and grab a few things off the vine and you're done? That's not what I'm doing. People talk about going smaller scale, but I don't need to prove smaller scale, because you can buy smaller scale now. There are aquaponics stores and aquaponics businesses that sell stuff that can go in your backyard or even go in your living room. They even have really cute ones that can go on the wall, that decorate the wall with foliage, with plants that you're growing, and some fish tanks on the bottom. I mean, you can get these really cool custom setups for aquaponics in your home. I don't need to prove that. That already exists. That's not what CFS is doing. What CFS is doing is a slightly larger scale, but not too big. I'm not going, huge with this. It's like, I don't want one building to feed 10,000 people. That's not the goal. One building is going to feed around 600 people. 7 different fruits or vegetables, 6 or 7 different fruits or vegetables for about 600 people. And that's really as big as I want to get. If there's more people, we just put in more buildings. And the reason why is because if you start centralizing it to much larger locations, now we run right back into the same centralization problem that we have in the first place. I don't want that.
So the idea is have decentralized systems so that you could have multiple ones of these, and in fact it's a good fallback plan anyway, because if one fails for some reason, then you don't want to have a whole populace all relying on one source of food, which now no longer exists.
Exactly. So I'd rather have, you've got small scale, which is your backyard, you've got medium scale, which is kind of what I think I'm doing, and then you've got really large industrial scale. The catch with really large industrial scale, like you said, is if something happens there, you've got a whole bunch of, it's like we do with the electricity. Look at the power grid system. I mean, I do not want to do with food what we're doing with power, because power is ridiculous. One power plant goes down, you have one disaster, you have a Fukushima or something like that, millions of people are screwed. And so what are you going to do? You don't want to do that with food.
No, most definitely not. In fact, I saw a video of this C++ engineer programmer. I'm sorry, and he had, I think he was somewhere in the outskirts of California, and he had built this house that was completely off the grid. It was it's a beautiful house. I'll send you the video afterwards. You have to see it.
Okay.
And he's automated pretty much the whole lot. So the energy collection, he's got an internal greenhouse and everything. It's got, in fact, the genius thing is even got like central locking, so you lock the front door and all the windows and doors lock. So you don't have to go around checking everything. It's amazing, basically. And he was saying that when the power goes out, he can look down and he can see that the whole town goes out, and he's sitting there with his light still on, going, I've got more energy than I could possibly need here, and if everybody was to convert to this wouldn't be happening when the grid goes down, basically.
Yeah, and what's one of the first things that people worry about when the power goes out? Food. Their refrigerator. Right? Their refrigerator is no longer on, so all their food is going to go bad. So people scramble for water, they scramble for food, they scramble, or they, in advance of hurricanes, they prep for it and they buy a whole lot of extra stuff, assuming that their fridge is going to go out. Why is your fridge going to go out? Why do we live in a system where it's even reasonable to assume that your fridge is going to go out? How about have your house set up so that it doesn't go out?
Precisely.
This isn't rocket science.
Well, this would seem preposterous what we're talking about if the technologies did not exist, to actually solve all these problems. They just seem so poorly promoted, and at the same time, they're all right there. And I think having had access to the world of information, all of a sudden, I'm actually realizing what there is out there, and realizing there's so much stuff that I wish I'd known about 10 years ago. I would have reconstructed my life in a completely different manner, and in fact I'm still trying to now. In fact, one of the reasons what you're proposing here is so interesting to me is that in my mind at the moment I've got a plan, and the plan is to build a completely self-sustaining house, an automated house which is self-sustaining, so you're able to walk away from it for like months, come back and still have food, energy and shelter all there, essentially taking care of itself. And I'm still at the stages where I'm drawing things in my sketchbook and trying to figure out how to bring everything together and what location this would work best in. But I think what you're saying is absolutely correct. You're not having to reinvent the wheel because all these systems are already there. I've seen so many different types of aquaponic systems. There's a place in, I think, Wisconsin or something. They've got a shop, and their system is quite impressive. They've squeezed numbers fail me, but basically, I think they're.
Are you talking about the guy in Chicago?
Yeah, I might be actually.
He has like 10,000 square foot warehouse or something that's just huge, and they make tons of food, all basically aquaponically. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So these systems are all proven.
And people ask me, well, why are you doing CFS if they've got something like that? And my comeback to that is that's great. I love that. People should do that. That is very infrastructure dependent, though. That building cannot be off the grid. It's too big. There's too much energy that's got to go into that building to make it do what it does. What I'm trying to do is make basically farms in a box that are completely independent, so that third world nations, people that are starving to death, don't have a grid. They don't have they don't even have a way to survive, much less have something to plug into. So these buildings are designed to work on that. Now, these also can work for restaurants, and even in first world applications, they can still do their job. maybe we can dumb down the clean energy bit if a company wants it a little bit cheaper. But to be perfectly honest, the clean energy bit isn't the most expensive bit. I mean, it's basically a big concert. Besides, in the long run, wouldn't you want your farming facility to be off the grid so you don't ever have to worry about that bill?
Precisely.
Yeah, so it could work for, imagine an Olive Garden having one of these on their roof, or actually they have a kind of a look and an image of a cottage village thing, so it wouldn't really work on their roof, but maybe in the backyard or maybe somewhere in town you have like a few of these buildings that cover all the Olive Gardens of a city or a town or something like that. So you want to talk about local produce, boom, you just take a 5-minute drive, you go to the CFS facility, you pick these bad boy tomatoes or whatever, or off, or lettuces or whatever that you need, and you take them right down, and it's right there in the same, it's almost like going to the village market. It just so happens the village market has an evil red eye that says, hello, Dave. You know, stuff like
that. Most
Your
definitely.
lettuce is ready, Dave. You know, the technophobia cracks me up. People are afraid of everything. You can make yourself afraid of anything, but that stuff, I have to laugh at that, so I make jokes.
It's a good one. I like that one. One of my favorite films. I was gonna say, actually, on the point of technophobia, actually, because you know, I'm a, well, I wouldn't say precisely, but I'm a relative techno evangelist. Basically, you know, I do implicitly feel that technology can solve a lot of problems. I feel like so far it has solved lots and lots of problems right from the very inception. However, at the same time, there are still cases where it doesn't. It seems to cause more problems than it solves.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree.
Yeah. And you know, I mean, I'm not sure. It does make me a little bit nervous sometimes because I'm not sure whether I'm being overly cautious, or maybe whether there are other factors in place, and whether technology in its purest form is benign and shouldn't be causing problems, basically.
Well, I mean, technology is a tool, right?
Yeah. That's true.
It's a tool, and so how do we as humans choose to use the tool? I mean, a hammer is a piece of technology. I mean, we used to use rocks to smash things together or try to build something, but that's not very effective. You can smash your fingers and stuff, so let's get this cute little handle with a big heavy end on it, and that's actually because of fulcrum and mass and having concentrated, wham, I can hit a nail. Or I could go up to somebody and whack them upside the head. Now, is it the hammer's fault that it was used to build a home to provide shelter for somebody? Or is it the hammer's fault that it was used to smack somebody up the head and cause injury and pain and suffering? It's not the hammer's fault. It's just a tool. So as far as I'm concerned, technology is the same exact thing. How do we use it? What are we using it for? I saw, no word of a lie, somebody today posted something on my wall, on my Facebook wall. I'm sure it was a joke, but it's still funny. It's a toilet, a kid's potty training toilet with a clipboard to put an iPad on it.
I've seen
It's
that.
called the iToilet. That is the dumbest effing thing I have ever seen, because they asked me, Doug, what do you think? And I think it's retarded. That is the most ridiculous use of an excuse for throwing technology into something that doesn't need to. It's a toilet. Yeah. It's a potty. Okay? I'm kind of on the fence with the whole TV in the bathroom thing. I know if I'm laying down in the tub and I want to chill out in the tub with the sauna or stuff, I could have a little TV there. I think I'm okay with that. But I think some people go too far. And technology can be misused. And so it goes back to, what are you using it for? How is it being used? And so that's where I come on that.
Okay, no, that's a fair point. Because, I mean, I was going to say, because the one I've got... for me, the jury's out on really is actually, it's social media in itself as a creation of technology. Because of this, from one aspect, social media platforms are allowing me to have this conversation with you right now. You're in Florida, I'm in the UK. You know, it's highly unlikely we'd be able to organize strategically with our lives to come and meet up in one place and have this discussion. But social media is allowing that. However, at the same time, I feel like social media has got everybody walking around like this, you know, not really looking up. And so it puts me in a bit of a conflict. I'm like, well, on one aspect, is a great tool, but the other aspect, it seems to have also made people antisocial. So this is
I agree.
Mm,
I agree. It's social media making people antisocial. Isn't that hilarious? I mean, we're basically conversing through we're conversing through electrons now. We're not even conversing through airwaves anymore by like talking face to face to each other. And so it's. But you're right. In our particular case, it's I wouldn't say impossible, but it would have been a logistic and financial nightmare for one of us to fly to the other person and have a meeting and blah blah blah. And right now, I can chill out in my office bedroom right here, and you can chill out in your house, and we can have these laptops running with the webcams, and voila, we have ourselves an amazing conversation quarter of the way around the planet. So that's fantastic. But you're right, the zombie teenagers walking, zombie apocalypse, it already happened. It's teenagers walking with their iPhones like this, doing this all the time. We've got basically our daughter, we kind of call her our daughter. She in many respects she has been since she was like 6 when her father passed away, but we've kind of taken, we kind of guide her. She's 16, she does this, and that but she doesn't really do that when she's here, though, because I laid down that ground rule real fast. You're not going to be doing this all the time. Talk to people. If you want to go somewhere and hang out with friends, I'll take you. Physically be there, okay? Engage. I used to go out and ride my bike and not come home for hours at a time, running around and playing outside with my friends. And now everybody's stuck in front of Xboxes and stuff like that. Now, don't get me wrong. I like video games too. I am a huge Star Wars: The Old Republic online video game player. I love that game. I'm a Star Wars geek anyway. So I will dump 5 hours on that game, no problem. Running around, chatting with other people, playing the game. It's fun. But I also go outside and play. And so there's this balance that you've got to have. And I think that comes back to education. How do we teach people to use the technology? And so when you start seeing people go off the deep end and becoming antisocial because of the tech, you need to have an intervention. And it's just like you would with an alcoholic. It's just like you would with a drug addict. It's anybody who has this dependency issue. They're just putting it into tech. We can fix the other ones. We can fix that one too.
That's very interesting, actually, because I've got 2 little ones, and they are. It dawned on me the other day how they are fully. I mean, they're going to be a generation that grows up fully cybernated, essentially, because from the age of about 18 months, my daughter would come up in the morning while I was sleeping and start playing with my iDevice, and navigating her way around it with just sheer ease. Now they're both well versed in computing, basically, and they're barely in primary school, which but then at the same time I have to make sure that I make sure that there's a certain time that they're allowed to have a little play with the device, but other times that they get to learn about what's around them and actually physically interacting with stuff. Because as you said, I grew up in a similar way. I've had the benefit of growing up in lots of different countries, and I remember we had a computer. When I used to live in India, we had a computer and I'd play it sometimes. But what I used to love doing was going out on my bike. I'd go discovering. I'd go rock climbing and collecting.
I used to do stupid shit as a kid. I used to do dumb things.
I did some crazy stuff. I've almost blown my face up by putting emptying fireworks into a container and trying to light it, making my own rudimentary dynamite, almost blowing my face off.
Right, and you learn physics and chemistry really fast that way.
Exactly.
And there's, we, of course, kind of tongue-in-cheek, you got to be safe, but I used to go hiking down in a place we called the Canyon that had railroad tracks and stuff in it. You got trains going by, cargo trains and stuff, and we would climb up on cliffs that were like that, and the train is going down the middle, and we would build forts up against the trees and the manzanita bushes up there and hang out up at our fort and be able to look down at the train as it went by. And as an adult, I'm thinking, I was an idiot. How in the hell did I not slide down that hill and ride to a train?
But that must have been awesome. As a child, you know, that's like, you know, that's the
because you're building stuff. I'm building a
Exactly.
fort. I'm doing something. I'm using my imagination and stuff. And I'm like 12, 13, starting to, you know, running around just being an idiot, you know, and stuff. And it's not, I kind of sound like we both sound like old men, don't we? You're like, I remember.
I remember back in the days when I used to do.
and I'm only 36.
Oh, likewise. Well, I'm 36 later on this year, but you know.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, so it's you know, we sound that way, but then see, that's an illustration of how fast things have changed.
Exactly.
We're young, and we're already sounding like grandpas on the porch, rocking our chairs, drinking tea, bitching about the young whippersnappers on our lawn. Right?
Definitely. But it's true. Somebody's got to get a grip of this. I think, you know.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it's our responsibility to be the ones that get that grip. I think, in a way, it's our fault because it's our generation, for the most part, that developed a lot of these bells and whistles. If you look at all the tech boom was basically done by young people. Young people just went, whoom, and made all this amazing tech, and now it's continuing to flourish. It's also our responsibility to teach each other and our children and the generations to come what is a proper and an improper use of this stuff. You know, that we need social interconnections. We need to hug every once in a while. There's part of being human that goes beyond just the bells and whistles of technology. You know, I'm going simple with CFS. I'm just making food.
Yeah.
And so it's not a social, although I do plan on putting webcams in the building so that people could log in and actually see the building operate. I think that would be just cool, a way to show people, brilliant. You know, here's what it is, here's what it's doing. You could log in, it's free, and you could watch this building on harvest day, and it'll have a little clock that says the leafy greens, the spinach is going to come out on this day at this time. Watch everything turn on, and then they can just come in. And if they wanted to, I want to do stuff like that. Yeah. Because I think some people have a misconception of what it is I'm trying to do, and so maybe that's where sometimes that it's, you know, I'd never be able to generate enough energy to run everything. Most of it's a passive system. Yeah. Yeah. Most of it is a passive system anyway. It's a greenhouse, so it's going to have open windows and sunlight coming in and all that. I am going to try to put some LED lights in there, but basically as a supplement. If you look at luminosity and like light intensity, if a vegetable needs 5,000 lumens of light to be best day ever, right? And it's bright and sunny outside and it's 5,000 or above, but then some clouds come in for a day and it's a cloudy day and we drop to 3,200, right? Well, the LED, the sensor on there will be like, oh, okay, we're below 5,000, we're down to, let's say, 4,000, all right? We're just going to ramp up the LED, dim it up a little bit so that it covers the 1,000 difference. And now the sensor's like, okay, we're back to 5,000 again. We're good to go. And as far as the plant concerns, it doesn't give a crap. You know, it's like, oh, it's still 5,000. It's just the sun went down, so the light goes up. And then vice versa. So I want to try to create this automated balance, but the people don't have to worry about that bit. That's just going to be something that's done by the little sensor that's no bigger, it's not even bigger than this phone. It's actually smaller than this, about as big as the plate. That can just go on the box, on the outside of the box, and that can govern all of them. One sensor could govern all the lights on one side of the building, and another sensor could govern all the lights on the other side of the building. Because when the sun gets blocked, it's going to kind of get blocked uniformly. So the whole building is going to feel the effect.
That's quite a smart solution, actually, because you know, essentially it boosts the efficiency of your setup, so that you're getting the most out of it. Right. One thing I thought of, actually, I thought that because if for what you are creating, for some of the needs of it, because if you're looking at essentially like maybe third world countries, for instance, which would be obviously your main market base. I think you may end up finding things like water being the problem area rather than light, essentially, because I come from Ghana, basically, and we're bang on the equator, so we get tons and tons of light, but what we lack is water, basically. So we can have long periods of time without rainfall, and then all of a sudden, you've got like 2-3 months where you get the whole world's rainfall, and then it stops again.
Yeah, exactly, and I agree, and that's accounted for in a couple of ways. I mean, you still have moisture in the air, you still have humidity, and so
Yes.
there are ways to extract moisture directly out of the air without needing rain. So those can be built into the system. You have your air conditioning units, right, that are going to climate control the building. Well, what's one of the byproducts of an AC unit that's always dripping outside people's houses all the time?
Water.
The condensation, all the water. So you collect that water that's coming off the condensate, and you run that back through some filters, and you run that back into the system. Plus, aquaponics only uses 1% of the water of traditional farming anyway. It's all a circular filtered system. The main thing that people are going to have to focus on is changing the filters and cleaning them out every once in a while.
Yeah.
And that's going to be factored into the building as well. So they're going to have that capability. So you're going to have your main tanks, all the fish tanks are going to have their water, and then you're going to have a couple of reserve tanks to have maybe 25 to 30% more water than you actually need. And then you're going to have all these rain collection systems. And if there's an overflow and it actually has even more water than it already needs for whatever reason, say monsoon season or whatever the case, then it'll just have a drain off valve and drain off that to the outside. And hopefully we'll set this up with the villages and the Peace Corps and the whatever group we're working with. We'll say, okay, if we put this building here, we could actually build a little regular farm here. Now I know your soil is kind of dead, but you know what? In a year, you're going to have so much leftover roughage from this building that you're going to be able to compost. And we're going to compost a lot of the leftovers and the dead fish and stuff like that, because the fish are going to have to be cycled off too. Yeah. So you can compost that and put that in your soil and re-enrich your soil for this plot. So we could take the leftover water and run it through your soil and blah, blah, blah. Maybe you can grow some wheat, or you could grow something that can't be grown aquaponically. And we can figure that out as we get there. I'm just kind of giving an option, a story, basically. But we'll talk with the locals and say, here's what we could do. What kind of way can we even more maximize the efficiency of this building by giving you some byproduct that you currently don't have anyway. Yeah,
well, you're going to get byproducts from it, which is going to be plant matter, dead animal matter, and all of that are nutrients, which I mean, in fact, even now, whenever I cook vegetables and everything that's left over, and I'm yet to get myself a compost bin in the garden. And I have to chuck it into the bin, and I think to myself, what am I doing? These are all just precious nutrients and the amount of nutrients that just get thrown away is ridiculous. But yeah.
Well, we have a lot of food waste. But so I as you can see, I've tried to think about as many different scenarios as possible that CFS can be more than just what it is, but maybe do other things as well. Now that might be a year down the road that we start implementing systems like that. I've got I can't do it all at once. Sometimes it's just too much. I have so many ideas in my head, I can't do all of them at once. The baseline of right now, what we're doing, and this goes back to the question I think you asked half an hour ago, is where am I right now with CFS? I've already got a blueprint idea laid out. I have a concept. I have a design. I know what parts I want in it. I've done as much analysis as I can on energy consumption, what will turn on, when will it turn off, yada yada yada. I've done all of that in spreadsheets and drawings and all this other stuff by myself. I'm a one-man band right now. I've called people and friends of mine who are engineers in different disciplines. Going to college, you end up making friends who are in different disciplines, and I'll call them up and be like, hey, what about this and that? Oh, and you might want to do this and this, and I'll get advice and stuff. A little 5-minute conversation. Plus, hey, how are you? How's the wife and the kids? That kind of stuff too. And so over about the last year and a half, I've put together what I feel to believe a really good starting point. And I've done it all unpaid. It's all just on my own, trying to do the best I can with what I've got, which is zero, really. Now is when I need to go from zero to I need some money to actually build this thing. And so that's what the Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign is all about, the CFS crowdfunding campaign, because I need to hire staff now. I can't do this all on my own anymore. I think it would be irresponsible for me to do all of this all on my own. I need to get some subject matter experts that are computer programming automation engineers, people that can run that bit, got multiple bits at once, even electrical engineering backgrounds as well. I was going to try to get a staff of about 10 which would be a subject matter expert for electrical, mechanical, civil engineering, for building design, things like that. And that was the original idea, was to do that and build a certain scale of a building, but I needed $1 million budget to do that. And half of that budget was just salaries for the employees. People forget how much that payroll is the vast majority of your cost. Is paying the people to come in every day to do the work. It wasn't even building the building. The building was only about $300,000 of the cost. The other $700,000 was basically overhead and payroll. And so I was like, you know what? I put that out there as the first CFS Indiegogo campaign for $1 million. And the more I thought about it, I went, that might be just way too much asking. Can I dumb this down? Can I get even smaller? And I said, okay, well, this person can probably do this job, and this job. So I'll roll that into one. And this person can probably do this. So I started bringing down the staff. And so I reduced the staff drastically to have multidisciplinary experts that can do a couple of things. And I also reduced the size of the prototype building itself from, X size to about a third of it, taking out some equipment so that I don't need to test certain things that way. I could do it a different way. And so I kind of retooled. I spent 2 days straight retooling the whole prototype facility. My wife watched me on the architecture program as I'm moving stuff around. She's like, what the hell are you doing? I thought you were done. I was like, I've got to make this thing smaller. I've got to make it cheaper. And I basically cut it in third. I cut it from about $300,000 to a little over 120 something thousand for cost to build the prototype itself. So now I'm looking at about $500,000 to get the whole thing started. For a tech company, even a small one, to only need $500,000 to build a full scale or a decent scale prototype of what it's going to set up as a final product isn't really that much. If you look at what tech companies usually need to get rolling. And so I think we're off to a good foot. Now, some people have asked, how come you're not going through venture capital firms? Why are you doing crowdfunding? You're never going to make enough for crowdfunding. They're right. I might not meet the goal with crowdfunding. I might not. But it is a really good, it is possible, but it is a good gauge to see how well received it is. And then I can know how much I could get off of crowdfunding. And I do have some other options in my back pocket, and I do have some people who are going to be jumping onto the crowdfunding in a couple of weeks. Some things are going through. So hopefully the crowdfunding really starts to take off. There's some things I can't talk about for legal reasons, but because it's all money. It's all related to money. So some things you just can't talk about. But the test was to see if crowdfunding could do it, because I would much rather, I used to say with the old project, I'd rather have 1 million people donate $1 than one person give me $1 million. Because I think the mindset would be different. If 1 million people gave me $1 saying, this is awesome, this could help a lot of people, I want to be part of this, I want to help with this, it's only $10, it's only $50, it's $100. I could blow $100 on a weekend at the bar with the friends. Why would I not spend $100 to help, create this awesome piece of technology to help move it forward? And maybe my contribution will help somebody else contribute, and then they'll get even more funding and yada yada to make good things happen. If I have one person with a huge fat budget, the odds are the only thing they're thinking about is dollar signs.
Well, exactly. And it gives control into the hands of one person, essentially, because they can leverage the fact that they're providing all the income. Crowdfunded, it kind of allows everybody who actually wants to do something positive to get involved. This is your access point, basically. This is a project which is not looking just to. I mean, there are many projects where they, they're like, let's adopt a child in the country, or let's provide a well somewhere, which are small scale. But this is something that is not just give a man a fish. This is essentially, teaching him how to fish for the rest of his life. Because once you set up something like this, that's it. You're providing perpetual food for a community somewhere for the rest of their existence, basically.
I've added on to that meme that what you were talking about. It's like give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach a man a fish and he eats for a lifetime. Have a robot do the fishing for him, and he can go do something else better with his life.
That's brilliant. I like that. I might adopt that myself. Actually, I love that.
So because we're now to that, we're still stuck in that teach a man to fish kind of thing. Because I get asked a question, what about the farmers? You're going to displace all these jobs. People don't realize how much farming has gone poof in
Yeah.
just the last 50 years as far as how many people it used to employ because of the technological innovations.
Right, exactly.
Nobody cries about all the people who got unemployed when the horse and buggy went away.
Yeah.
And that's the exact analogy I use. I was like, do you need your horse and buggy again? No, because you got this fancy car and you unemployed a lot of wagon makers. All the people who made the wagon wheels, all the people who made all the wagon parts. All of that stuff, and the tackles and the harnesses for all the horses, gone.
Yeah.
Thanks to your car, thanks to your fancy car, that's now gone. Do you weep for them? No, you don't even think about those people. You move on because you know those people probably figured out something else to do. Likewise with farming. Farming does not need to be an occupation that someone has to do to survive. I'm totally cool if somebody likes to farm and wants to do it because they love it. That's completely different. That more power to them. Do what you love. Absolutely. If that's what you want to do, do it. But this generational hand-me-down of my grandfather's grandfather was a farmer and that's just all I'm ever going to be, I think that's intellectual nonsense. I think you could be whatever you want to be if you got the relevant education for it. I also believe that it's not as efficient as it otherwise could be.
Well, exactly.
And so I would
the people. I mean, have a robot do it and get the people using their minds to do other things. All these minds are being wasted. On doing things that essentially can be automated.
Most of these people are being wasted because they're not eating, and so they're starving to death. These minds are being wasted because they're not even surviving. Inefficiency
as very rawest form. The amount of minds, the ideas, and the innovation that could be had from billions. Like the number is staggering.
How many Einsteins have we possibly missed out on because of the stupidest thing like starvation?
Yeah. Or are we still missing out on just due to starvation? There are billions and billions of people. This is ridiculous. And it goes a long way to halting that in its tracks, basically.
Yeah, and I think it's, and I'm not saying I'm the ultimate solution because I don't believe CFS is the final solution. I think it's a composite of do something in your house if you can, do something locally in your neighborhood, have a CFS system that's like, for example, one of the options is a new apartment complex or a new subdivision neighborhood could have one of these buildings in the middle near their park or whatever where the kids go and play. They can have the building there. That building could provide all the fruits and vegetables, or at least a decent percentage of them, a small portion, for all the people that live in that neighborhood. So now you're kind of now it gives the neighborhood a reason to work together. Heaven forbid it actually brings people together.
And the kids,
stuff like that.
The kids learn where their food comes from, which I think is actually fundamentally important to it's knowledge that everyone I believe needs to know.
Yeah.
Because that's what powers your biomechanical body, basically.
Yeah,
exactly. No, excellent. I will. I see. We've probably strayed a little bit over an hour, but that's all well and good. It was getting very interesting. But what I'll ask is if you could just give me the Indiegogo address, so that we can point people to it, and get some backing for this project.
It's wicked simple. It's indiegogo.com/CFS.
Excellent. That's pretty simple. And if people want to contact you,
they can do so through the company website because the contact form on there ends up coming to me anyway. And so the company website is cyberfarmsystems.com. Cyberfarmsystems.com.
Okay, so indiegogo.com/CFS and cyberfarmsystems.com. Anybody watching, go there, have a look. This is an awesome project. This is the first step to making sure that we are fully in the 21st century and are solving some of the basic legacy problems that have been with us since human beings created the agricultural civilization and well, agricultural revolution, should I say? Yeah, I think it's time to make sure that reaches its inevitable conclusion and everybody gets fed, basically.
Amen to that. Thank you.
Which is
Thank
really
you.
fundamental. Thank you very much, Doug. You've, you know, it's been great. You've, you know, taking time out of your day to talk with us.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Would you be happy to join us another point in time, and you know, have a discussion on some other points? You know,
sure.
Yeah.
We'll talk about space exploration.
Oh, that'd be brilliant. I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a little boy, and I never made it there. But to speak to someone like you who's been in the thick of things is absolutely fascinating. I'd really love to get, you know.
I used to be on the bowling league with the pilot for Endeavour. He's a good friend of mine, so sure, we can talk about stuff.
That's it. I'm geeking out right now. That's it.
He's a pretty good bowler too. He's also a good bowler.
Oh, awesome. And we can talk about Star Wars as well. As you said earlier on, you're a bit of a Star Wars geek, so am I. I've obviously, knowing that the property's been passed on to Disney now, I'm quite interested to know what happens. You know, let's have some interesting stuff coming out. But anyway, I'm rambling. I'm rambling. Doug, this has been brilliant. Thank you very much for granting us your time. Basically, I'll be in touch, and we can have some more interesting chats.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Excellent. Right, everybody listening, this has been the Fast Fwd Podcast. You can catch me on Twitter at twitter.com KWA_ME Kwame, and my website is KWA.me Kwame again. No .com, it's a .me. So yeah, there you go. And yeah, hope you've enjoyed this. Hope it's been informative. Go and check out Doug's project, CFS Cybernated Farm Systems. This is the future right here, moving fast forward. All right, we'll sign out. See you later, Doug. Catch you later, buddy.
Take care.
Take care. Just sorry to interject. I might do this if you don't mind. So if you're trying to use mass, does that mean you literally go up there with very little and then grow stuff up there, basically? Is that the idea?
Well, that's the idea. They're not quite doing that yet. Of course, the past 20 years or so has just been about building the space station and building all of these things. So all the mass going up was just parts, getting all the stuff up there. But now when you're looking long term, like living up there and standard operations, we still do logistics runs where we take automated vehicles. That's what SpaceX is doing with their Dragon capsule and stuff like that, the private space industry. They're basically a cargo resupply ship, and so they just put in a whole bunch of food and perishables and stuff and take it up there. But if you're thinking moon base, if you're thinking Mars base, let's just go all the way out to Mars, because that's what I talk about when I do my lectures. You can't just shoot up a rocket, resupply it really quick, and have it come back to the Earth. Mars is too far away. The logistics windows are 2, 4, 6 years. It depends on the windows that are involved. So when you start thinking about living on someplace that far away.
Okay, right. Welcome to the Fast Fwd Podcast. We've got with us Douglas Mallette, I say ex, but ex-NASA Space Shuttle Systems engineer, if I'm right. A member of the Zeitgeist movement.
Loosely affiliated, yes.
Loosely affiliated. And CEO of Cybernated Farm Systems.
Correct.
Excellent. We're going to talk a little bit about your Cybernated Farm Systems project. I had quite a big interest in aquaponics for about a year now when I first came across it. I like the whole idea of it being almost an ecosystem by itself. And when I heard about your project and looking to create this self-contained food growing and growth to delivery system, and drop them all over the planet. I just thought this is absolutely fascinating. I've got to find out a little bit more about this. So
Sure.
so if you could give me a quick rundown of how this idea came about, basically.
Well, we'd have to go all the way back to the Haitian earthquake that ravaged Haiti. And at the time, I was still working with the space shuttle program. And you, when you're working in the space industry, you kind of learn about what sustainability and all of that is anyway, because when you're doing space missions and you're up there for weeks at a time with there's no grocery store orbiting the planet.
Yeah.
And so you've got to take everything with you, and you've got to make sure that and when we say take everything with you, that means mass. And the more mass you have, the harder it is to get up, because you got more weight and you got all this thrust and you have the rockets, and there's a whole technical analysis that goes into how much stuff you can really take up. So the goal is a minimization. Minimize what you have to take up as much as possible so you have less mass. And I'm kind of getting to the story. I got to give you some background as to where CFS came from, and so I'm kind of giving you a core description.
That's fine.
And that complicated. You have to think about sustainability, longevity, making sure that you bring as much with you as you can, but so that it's in a reusable, context. And so Haiti happened, and I saw what was going on with their quote-unquote rebuilding effort, which, by the way, they're still doing a rebuilding effort, which makes no sense. And at the time, I had just been made aware of Dr. Kushnievis from the University of Southern California, who came up with a technology called contour crafting, which is basically a fully automated erector set for making buildings. And you can make a 2,000 square foot building in 24 hours. And I thought, I'm watching Haiti, and I'm looking at what this guy has the potential to do. And I'm like, holy crap, you could rebuild all of Haiti in like a month.
Yes.
If you put like 6 or 7 of these robots down there and just went chikunk, 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 and just started, cranking out neighborhoods.
Even if you were to say contour crafting is still like in its infancy, if you look at what the Chinese are doing at the moment with how fast they can put up buildings, it's possible to literally reconstruct entire cities in, I would say, I'm not an engineer, but I would hazard a guess of saying at least within a couple of years you could build an entire city, basically.
Yeah, and I firmly believe that's true. It doesn't take a leap of faith or a lot of extrapolation to look at what you already have in front of you. Like you said, that there's this video of building a skyscraper in, what was it, like a day or 2 days, or something like that.
Exactly.
It's ridiculously short. I mean, ridiculous. I could be off on the time scales, but I know it's not the 6, 8, 9 months that they usually try to do.
It was literally days, basically.
Days.
Yeah.
And they did it. And so it's right there in front of you. So you've got that. And then you've got what Dr. Kushnievis is doing, a PhD in material properties and stuff, and really knows his stuff. He's a professor at a leading university in the science department. It's not like the guy's going to be blowing smoke, up people's rear ends to say, oh, I'm selling you, all this great stuff. He has a working a small scale prototype in his lab and stuff like that. So I'm looking at that. I'm going, well, that's awesome. And then the next thing that went in my mind, well, that's shelter. What about food? And I'm actually not an aquaponics specialist.